looking up just podcasts for real estate and seeing if anything was out there that I could just listen to on my commute. And lo and behold, BiggerPockets was the first one.
Yeah.
So it's just been my commute, just listening to all the BiggerPockets episodes.
Like hundreds of episodes.
Yeah, they're just giving out great information.
What was your mindset on, like, at this time, were you just getting a check and like making sure your bills are paid, you were living comfortably, or at least that was the attempt? Or did you have knowledge or mindset of like financial freedom, financial independence, investing, and all this other stuff? Like, what was your mindset back at that time when it comes to like earning money and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was enjoying the city and, everything that California has to offer. It's a 45-minute drive on the weekends up to Napa and Sonoma, or you go hiking through the redwoods and stuff, which was awesome. I had a 2-hour commute on the train to get to where I worked out of the city. And on that 2-hour commute, it was just a matter of, reading books, listening to podcasts, trying to figure out, how to really just get ahead in life. Because as you sort of get into the day-to-day aspect of like your commute and going to work and that kind of stuff, you start to, want to figure out how to get ahead in life, I guess you could say. And so one of the things that I stumbled upon was a book, Investing in Your 20s and 30s for Dummies. And there was one section in there about real estate, and I was like, I don't know anything about real estate at all whatsoever. And so it kind of got me just curious about it, and I was looking up just podcasts for real estate and seeing if anything was out there that I could just listen to on my commute. And lo and behold, BiggerPockets was the first one.
Yeah.
So it's just been my commute, just listening to all the BiggerPockets episodes.
Like hundreds of episodes.
Yeah, it's back when Brandon Turner and Josh Dorkin were doing it.
Yeah.
And they're just giving out great information. Hearing people going from, like no money or 0 houses or anything like that to 100 doors in like a couple years, you know? And so it was always inspiring just to kind of hear people's stories and reaching financial freedom.
That was a really cool thing about that podcast, is they would have people on there that had like 10 houses. Yeah. And they were like, how'd you get started? Even though they had millions of listeners, they're like, they still remembered, like they didn't play the game of like, okay, now we need a bigger investor and a bigger investor. And they had some big ones on there for sure, but like they very much spoke to the people who like needed to get started, and then how do you get started and how do you scale? Like it covered the whole gamut, and also fortunately or unfortunately showed you 1,000 different ways to do it. So you could easily get lost in that world of like, well, what do I do? So you're listening to these, you had a 2-hour commute.
Yeah.
So is that 2 hours one way?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's substantial. So you probably are thinking about like, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah, something's got to give in life, right?
Yeah, like if you've met your girlfriend at the time, soon to be fiance or wife, you also start to think, of course, in your mid-20s too, about like having a family and things like that. And so you start thinking more about like providing and not doing the 2-hour commute when you have a wife and kids and stuff. Like it's easier to do when you're single.
Yeah. I
would assume that like all of that somehow was going through your mind and kind of trying to get in a different scenario.
As I was kind of going through everything, I was starting to figure out that like growth was really what made me happy. And so I think when I was in college, the pursuit of getting your degree is growth in itself. And so I think that was something that I was working towards, and it was enjoyable and fun and everything. And then when I got thrown into a new setting of going from maybe inpatient to an outpatient, there was a lot of new learning there, and I was able to grow a lot just from just taking on new patients and just learning new things in general too. And so the idea of getting into real estate investing was a whole new area of growth that I had never considered, So I probably consumed about every episode up until, that point of the BiggerPockets podcast. And so I feel like I probably had like a decent amount of just knowledge just from listening to it. The problem with San Francisco is that the average house price out there is $2 million, at the time. And so it was hard for me as like somebody in their mid-20s to even consider buying a $2 million house at the time. I think now, I think that the mindset's a little bit different, where, you can maybe house hack or you could do different things to make it work. But at the time I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to buy a house.